This is Joe from ArtAlienTV, and I've got something really cool to show you today. Now, this is another HiRISE image. I've been doing quite a lot of these recently because these have got good detail in. Now, this is the Gigapan I've done of it. And what I've done here, I've got an enhanced one on the left, which is not orientated north, so it's upside down. But I've got the map orientated or north orientated one on the right, which is raw, okay, which is very pasty. And when you first look at it, it's like, okay, yeah, this it's almost hard to look at because it's kind of a bit bleached out. There's not much shadow in it. So what I did with this one here is I enhanced the shadow and darkened it. Added a bit of contrast just to make it clearer to see the shapes of the things on the ground. And the first thing I noticed was this area here. There's like a rectangular object here. I'll show you with the magnifier. Just here. It's a long rectangular shaped thing in the ground which looks like a structure. I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. Then I looked over here and I thought, what the hell is this? We have like a weird compound with an entrance here. When you start looking around, you've got this mound with two squares on the top here, one here and one here. Right, I'll show the magnifier just so I can point that to you better. You can see one there and another one here, right? Now, according to the actual name of this thing, these are cratered cones. And the science theme is volcanic processes. Right. Okay. So, according to NASA, they're kind of calling these volcanoes with craters in them. Now, some of them may be, and this may have been underwater many, many millions or a billion years ago. Who knows? It's very flat, this area. When you start looking around, there's another square in the ground here, just here, right? And when you look just above that, there's another square here. And then I thought, hang on a minute, they're all over the place. We got this weird thing here, which is kind of square, but it's got like this angled part at the top here. Right angles here. And then we got a sort of angled part here, which is a different shape. But we've got multiple squares and rectangles and geometric shapes in the ground. Like we have here, we've got a double one here. So I thought, yeah, that's pretty cool. There's a whole group of stuff there. But once you start looking further, there's a huge one here. Now, do craters have right angled corners like this with smaller square structures inside them? And there's a long rectangle there on the right. There's a bunch of rectangles in here together, squares and rectangles here, like a group of structures buried here. The ground in this area is very concrete like and probably frozen over most of the year, like most of Mars is. And it's quite reflective. It's a bit like looking at the moon. It has a high reflectivity or luminosity, right? So you've got to darken these down a bit just to see what's on the ground. Otherwise, they're a bit too garish. They actually hurt your eyes after a while. It's not good to look at these things when they're too bright. It's a bit like you end up with a sort of form of snow blindness. And I'm sure I've had that before. I was a couple of months back. I was working for about a week on some images, converting loads and loads of images and stuff, and just flicking through loads of them. And I ended up with really bad eye infection. I got quite ill and wasn't very well. And I actually think it was a form of snow blindness or something similar to that. We have a triangular structure here with a hexagonal crater in it. But is it a crater? Look at that. It's almost perfect, I would say. this one here. And it's right on this sort of triangular structure. You can actually see an outline of a rectangular building here and here. Just about make them out in the ground, right? Just there. And we've got a wall on the outside here. Eroded, but it's there. So we've got multiple structures in it. We've got a hexagonal supposed crater, right? What are the chances of that? I wonder. And we got some of these. Some of these do look like craters, and they're quite rounded, like this one. There's like a double one here. But was that a structure before it was hit by something? Possibly. What this looks like a bunch of city or what I would call compounds. Now, I've shown a lot of these before on my channel. Many areas of Mars, you see these big, seemingly natural structures when you first look at them until you zoom in, and then you realise that they've got walls and they've got lots of internal structures like this one has here. It's like a plateau sticking up with multiple squares in the ground here. You can actually see these square shapes here, right? There's loads of them. And when you start looking at all these things, you think, well, hang on a minute, there's another one up here. And then there's this one up here. What's going on here? Are these craters or what? Here's one just here in the centre. Let me zoom in. Look at this. Right angles, right angles, right angles, right? Big rectangle there, another one here. Smaller ones around the edge, like there's one here, just here. Then we have this, which is straight along this side, but we have like rectangular cutouts here. There's another rectangle there. This is rectangular, although slightly curved at the top. Bear in mind, a lot of this stuff is eroded and has probably been hit. When I say hit, a lot of these craters may not have happened randomly. They may have been targeted, okay, from above. As I have shown in many of the city areas I've shown before, there's loads and loads of craters around the structures, and then you look away from the city area and there's hardly any, right? Which says to me, either they built these and utilised the craters as some sort of resource, stone, to build with, maybe, because the craters would throw up a lot of rocks and stuff, which you could then build into structures, or they built these compounds and they were targeted later from above by someone they didn't agree with. Now, the beauty of this thing is you can actually turn these around. So I'm going to turn this around, and then I'm going to show you the clips I've got as well, because it's upside down and it should actually be this way up, like that, slightly angled, right? Let's go a little bit further. It should be like that-ish. So now that's up the right way. And there's the large compound in the middle. And if you look inside the compound, there are multiple structures inside it as well, all eroded away. But this looks like a row of structures would have been here. Buildings, right? Just here. So that looks like a compound. This one here with a right angle here. And we have a square one here with another kind of rectangle next to it there. And then we have this angled one here. Now, depending on which way you look at these, sometimes when you look at these images, they don't make any sense and you see them in reverse. Depending on which way round your brain operates, because not everyone's works the same way round, a lot of people see these in reverse and they don't get it, right? So all you need to do, if that's the case, is flip the image upside down, okay? Because basically, some people, when they first look at this, they see it in reverse, like it's being flipped. And craters will look like domes, and domes will look like craters. But then it's because your brain doesn't know which side is the shadow, and it can't work out whether it's sticking up or down. It's the concave, convex. It's just the way the human brain works sometimes. It depends on how you first see the image. And often people don't see these around the right way. And this is why it's great that you can flip them up the other way, because if it doesn't make sense to you, it's not your fault. It just means that your brain is perceiving it in reverse. Okay? It's hard to explain, but that's what happens. But look at these. This is the one I showed you a minute ago, but up the other way. Now, a lot of them look a lot more artificial if you see them orientated the right way round, like these are. I would say at least half of these are artificial, which means there's about a dozen structures here, and there may be more, but the triangular one here is really, really cool. Look at that. And if you look at it round the other way, look at that. Look at that. It's mind-boggling. And this is one of the latest images from this satellite. It literally was put on the website last night, and I had a quick look at it and I thought, wow, absolutely insane. So we got pyramid shaped ones, we've got like triangular ones like this, we've got squares, we've got polygons. This is a weird one here. We got this weird double one here. Is that artificial? Possibly. Some of them look very artificial because they're less eroded or bigger and have got straighter edges, but I'm sure a lot of these are artificial. There's that one there. Pretty good right angle there. Craters do not have right angles, right? That's a crater. Craters can go sort of polygon shaped, and they can go kind of sort of more angular, but some of these in this area are just too good to be natural. Okay, look at this one. Perfectly straight, that is. See, you can flip this round and you can see how straight these are by using the edge of the screen. Look at that. Absolutely. If you get it tilted right, you can see if the walls are straight. And look at that. Perfectly straight. There's that compound there, with another one next to it and another one next to it. And this one also, I mean, all four of these may be artificial. Let's go a bit closer. Look at that. But like I said, a lot of this stuff has got sand drifted over it, and it's also probably collapsed. It's been hit. There's probably been earthquakes. There's probably been meteor strikes, and like I said initially, this area may have been attacked from above, like many of the other city areas I've shown on Mars. And some of the city compounds, they've got loads of craters around them, but not. You go about a kilometre away from them, and there's no craters at all. So they do look like being targeted in a war. Okay, there's that small one there. Pretty good. But that's the least remarkable of them, I think. This is a really cool set, this one here, where you've got that long rectangle there, and this one here, which is kind of house shaped. Right, and then we've got a double square here, look, just here. Absolutely mental. They're all over the place, and there's another view of that there, but bigger. This is like a bigger clip, right, of the area, which has been enlarged a bit, right? And here's a negative of one of them. Now this one's been flipped upside down and flipped negative just to show this square structure here near the top. And you can actually see inside that there were structures inside this compound as well. Up here, look at this perfect square at the top. You've got a triangle here. And then if you look inside in the middle, there is the remains of a structure here, or a set of structures. And you can actually see rooms and different walls and things in there. But it's been obliterated and buried, a lot of this stuff. Okay? And a lot of people have been showing things on Mars like this for many years, but it's not often you see a load in one area. Normally, you might get the odd one, or if you're lucky, you might get a city, like I've shown before, a few city areas where you get hundreds of structures. These are quite well spaced out. They're compounds. They're like little village compounds. There were dangerous animals on Mars and dangerous people on Mars who didn't get on very well with each other. They were obviously at war. I've seen plenty of evidence for that. I've shown plenty of evidence for war debris on the ground, things like tanks and vehicles and ships and missiles and that kind of thing. So there was probably multiple wars there as well as natural disasters. So there was warfare on the ground and they were quite advanced, like we are now. But around 12,000 years ago, I think, is when they were largely wiped out. And a few people have come on my channel and said that they know they've done remote viewing and stuff like that, and they've spoken to remote viewers who said who claim that the Mars civilization was around 10,000 BC. That's probably when it ended, I would say. And that fits with what I'm seeing on the ground in places like Gale Crater and Jezero Crater, where things are still pretty well preserved because they're not millions of years old. They're 10,000, 12,000 years old, that kind of age. Some of the things may be way older. These may be way older than that. But as in things like skulls and remains on the ground, they look around between 10 and 20,000 years old because a lot of these things just simply wouldn't survive, even though there's very little oxygen and moisture on the ground on Mars. Things would freeze and last a lot longer on the ground, possibly 10 times longer than they would here, or maybe 5 times longer than they would, say, somewhere like Antarctica or in the Atacama Desert on Earth in Chile. But not much longer than that. Maybe 5 times, maybe 10 times longer. So maybe 25,000 years, maybe something like that maximum. But after that, they would just really just erode away. There would be nothing to see unless they actually fossilize in mud and get hardened like a fossil. Then they're not going to survive. There's rectangles within rectangles, which means they are artificial. There's no doubt about that. Okay. There are no such thing as square craters, right? Look at the one on the top left. That really comes out in negative. Look at the shapes. Look at this one here, bottom right. Those squares and rectangles, you can really see them here, right? Let's zoom in a little bit. Look at that. Look at that right angle there. I mean, seriously. Absolutely crazy, right? And sometimes it helps if you go back a bit, like this, with some of these things. So you can take clips of these off the Gigapan yourself. You can play with the contrast is going to be your best friend here. This is what really brings out the detail, right? And you can colorize them or turn a negative like I've done here. This is the compound here, one of the large compounds on the bottom left, with smaller ones here. We got that one there. We got the long rectangular one there. This is upside down, I think. Crazy, right? I mean, look at this thing here. Look at that. What the hell is that all about? Yeah, right. And squares in the ground. Look at this one here. I mean, seriously, guys. Here's the triangular structure with the hexagonal one in the side of it there, which is insane. Let's flip that to negative whilst we're here. See what happens. There we are. Look. Crazy. I mean, just look at that. You can't tell me that is a completely natural structure. They may be partly natural, a lot of these things, but they look like they've been shaped and modified and built on, and then later eroded and ruined and maybe struck by certain weapons from above. It's just crazy. Just crazy. Absolutely mental. So there's that one. These squares here, multiple squares there, and here, and up here on the left. Long rectangle with smaller structures sort of built into it at the top there. I mean, absolutely crazy. The detail on these is really good. You can sort of, the thing I do is I take a clip, I blur it just a tiny bit, and then sharpen it after. The initial blur gets rid of distortion, and then you sharpen up a cleaner image, so you get a better result. Okay, that's a nice little tip there. There's a negative of that. You can see these shapes extremely well in negative, right? Double squares, another square here which is angled. Right angles here, right angles in here, and up here on the right. We got a little one up there as well. They're everywhere. Here's a larger clip showing all those grouped together. Double square here, rectangle, 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 right angles, squares, square, hexagon there. I mean, how many geometric shapes do you want in an image? Now I know these are rounded off, but some of these look like they've been hit. So a lot of these here, I mean, this one here may be much more rectangular, but it seems to have been hit by something here, maybe. And look at this here, this hexagonal. It's got those squares inside it, just here. Insane, right? Absolutely insane. There's that long one. And we've got a large crater here. Now, was this later than these? That's the question. Now, if you were building something on Mars, I mean, it looks like he's got an entrance to it as well. Crazy, right? If you were going to build structures like this on Mars, having craters nearby would be very useful because you can fill them up with water, you can use it as a reservoir or a quarry or something. So there we are. So check all these out. I've got loads of clips here for you. You can zoom in and take clips yourself. Thanks for watching, everybody. I will see you soon.